This is LOA Recon with Good Vibe Coach Jeanette Ma, where we explore the ins and outs of conscious creation to manifest our favorite dreams come true. Let's have some fun together. Welcome and thank you for joining me for another episode. In a recent newsletter, I had talked about how sometimes we have a tendency to make changes in our life so that we can feel better, like when we quit a job to get a different one, or when we break up with our partner in hopes of enjoying something else more, or even changing where we live because we think we'll like it better somewhere else. And that liking it better somewhere else impulse is often destined for failure when it's driven by the dissatisfaction of what we've got rather than inspiration for even better. That can be tricky to know the difference when we're in the thick of it. Like, are we generally happy and life is just calling us to something more enjoyable? Or are we trying to escape what we don't want? I mean, how we feel will always tell the tale. But it's not unusual, even for savvy creators, to be trying to make changes in their key areas of life in an attempt to feel better, rather than making a habit of feeling better first and then honoring wherever guidance calls them. The problem with making changes in order to feel better is that, like when I get a new boyfriend or a new job in order to feel better, but I don't actually know how to feel better, or I'm not already in the habit of happiness, that new partner or that new employer isn't going to make the difference that I hoped it would. It can't, because how we feel is always our work. We cannot outsource that to our lover or livelihood or bank account. So, in the newsletter, I had suggested that before you go changing whatever key thing in your life you think is the source of your problems, first, find a way to feel better. Because often it turns out we don't even need to change those things that we thought were the problem. Since once we feel better first, a lot of times we get a whole different version of our partner or employer or neighborhood or body or bank account, whatever it is. Because lots of folks are out there swapping spouses or quitting school or going back to school or moving across the country, getting cosmetic procedures, trying to make themselves happy. But that's the muggle way of going about it. And it isn't often successful, at least not long term. What works way better is just learning how to feel better yourself first. Because you might already have a perfectly good lover or employer or nose or home that you just can't see clearly because you're looking at it through the eyes of unhappiness or dissatisfaction. So I'd suggested that before you decide anything, work on feeling better first, because you can be sure that any changes you still feel like making after that are going to serve you well. Taking action for the sake of shaking things up doesn't help if we don't know how to be happy regardless. There isn't a right person or job or body improvement that grants us the good vibrations we want. That's on us, all day, every time. And more often than not, once we get a good handle on feeling better, all the things that seem to stand in the way of our happiness turn out to be fabulous supporters of it. It's so funny how that works. I had promised to share a personal example of how to feel better before anything else changes, because a lot of people are kind of convinced that it's the external situation that's the reason they're miserable, and if they could just change that, then they'd be happy. But yeah, this is not often the case. But when I suggest that, they wonder, okay, well, how am I supposed to get happy while I'm still in such a bad situation? So I have an example. Many years ago, I was in a relationship that I had started to question. It seemed like it was just getting harder to enjoy the connection. I didn't look forward to spending time with him. I was easily irritated by things he did and didn't do. I felt my respect for him waning. I started to wonder if our time together was coming to a close, but I wasn't sure. Were my dissatisfied vibrations coloring the way I experienced our relationship, making it seem like he was the problem when really it was just my bad vibes that I needed to deal with? I didn't know. Because you know how that goes. You know how nothing seems good when you're off your game? You know, like the songs aren't as enjoyable, the food isn't as tasty, the sky isn't as blue. Just seems like everything is less when your vibe sucks. So I didn't want to make the same mistake. I'd seen so many others make that. I'd made myself many times, where we just get a new partner only to discover the same unhappiness in a new package. So I knew my first step was feel better first, and then I would know whether this man was still a part of my happy life. I've actually done this more than once, so I could tell you multiple stories. This first time, the way I felt better first was just to pretend that I was in a happy, satisfying relationship, that I was experiencing an enjoyable connection with my romantic partner. I just was acting like I already had it because I knew that if I could nail that vibration, it would become clear whether this guy matches that reality or whether he was not a match to my happily ever after. So I imagined that I liked my love life. I imagined that I was happy with my partner. I reflected on what it felt like to be satisfied with how this area of my life was going. And I'd felt that way before, so it wasn't hard to conjure. But even if this was a brand new first-time thing for me, this is what our imaginations are for, y'all. It doesn't have to be something we've experienced before in order to gift it to ourselves in our imagination now. Anything goes in our mind's eye. So I was telling the story, just to myself, not to anyone else, of how much I loved my life, how satisfied I was with the details of it, and I did that until I really felt it, because lip service doesn't count here. We really want to get to the feelings of it. I mean, yes, sometimes we might have to repeat it a couple times before we get in the vibrational groove of it, but we're really looking to change the way we're feeling now. And once I started feeling lighter, like relieved of this problem of wondering whether I needed to end things with this guy. Once I felt I was able to enjoy daily life in full again, delighted with my love life, whether there was a partner in there or not, who knows? But I just imagined myself happy and satisfied with all the areas of my life and glad to be here. I'm wondering about how long it took. In this situation, it wasn't even a week until it became clear this guy was not a match to my happily ever after. It was a matter of days. It could have been 2 or 3 days. And the way that I knew, it might not seem like a significant sign to you, but it was crystal clear to me. Because here I was in my happy-go-lucky, life is fabulous state of mind, loving every day. And then my boyfriend dug up the St. John's wort again, which he had done before. That's why we had a deal that he was not allowed to pull weeds without my supervision, because I was so crushed the last time he had done that. I mean, he said he thought it was a weed, and I'm like, clearly it's not. But you know what? Everyone makes mistakes. It was still a little plant. He doesn't know plants the way I know plants. All he knew was that it looked like it didn't belong. So I was like, fine, okay, but let's make sure it doesn't happen again. Look, I'm going to plant another one right here. Don't pull weeds without me. And I babied that new one. Oh, and plus I had to plant it later in the year because he had pulled the one that I'd planted in the ideal time. So it was hotter. It was hard to get it going. But I babied it every day. I was doing everything I could for it. I was admiring it. I was making sure it had the right amount of water. I was keeping dogs and cats off of it. I was monitoring its growth. I'd worked out a way to get some shade on it when it was super hot time of the day. I was just doing everything I could for this St. John's wort to grow. And less than a week after I activated Happily Ever After, he dug up the St. John's wort. I didn't know how that was possible. I'd been so clear. We had a deal. You don't do anything out here without me. But in the moment when I realized that he had pulled it again, clarity dawned on me. It was like a gift from above. I know it doesn't make sense, that this shouldn't be the reason you know this is not your guy, but I knew this was the reason this is not my guy. It was like a gift from above that just clarity settled over me, and there wasn't any angst or anger. It was just peaceful, calm clarity that this is not my guy. Our time is over. So that night I approached him and said it was time for us to go our separate ways, and I did it without drama, without regret, with only peace and joy in my heart that we would enjoy more peace and love without each other. The other time I practiced feeling better first when I wasn't sure how a relationship should go. You know what? Actually, that guy had suggested to me that the reason we weren't having a great connection was because I wasn't happy enough, and that if I would just make a point of getting happier, we would have a better relationship. This boyfriend was listening to my material. He's quoting my own stuff to me. And you know what? His logic was sound, but you know what I told him? I said, I have a suspicion. I'm a little nervous that if I get happy, we aren't going to be a match to each other anymore. But he thought I was the issue, and if I would get happier, we would be happier together. And I said, all right, if you were prepared for us to zig and zag out of each other's lives, because you remember the teacher, I think it was in The Secret, who talked about how when two people are on different vibrational wavelengths, they won't be able to meet up. It'll be like one is zigging while the other is zagging, even if you live together in the same house. So you don't have to try to get someone out of your life. All you have to do is zig instead of zag. In fact, this is exactly what I did. Remember my crackhead neighbor? I realized I had been in battle mode with the rest of the neighborhood trying to get rid of this guy because he was such a dangerous element to everyone. And it took a while like a couple months before I realized, okay, hello, I'm in battle mode and nothing good is going to happen. When you're at war, you don't get peace out of angry fighting. All you get is more angry fighting. So I deliberately tuned to 4 things: peace, love, quiet, and appreciation. Just because those were the things that were most missing from my life that I wanted back. So as I tuned to those vibrations, which I did just by remembering, hello, this is what I choose. I had them written on a sticky note. So whenever my thoughts and actions started to go somewhere that wasn't peace, love, quiet, and appreciation, I would remind myself, no, that's not what I'm having. What I am having is, and I would repeat those 4 words as a mantra. And that changed my thought patterns. It changed my actions. And I did that knowing that neighbor would not be able to be in my world while I am being good things. This guy who was the exact opposite would be gone from my world once I tuned to all these positive things. Oh, that's not what happened. When I got to peace, love, quiet, and appreciation, my crackhead neighbor tuned right there with me. I couldn't even believe it. He became a loving, supportive, friendly ally. Can you even believe it? To this day, it's the most astonishing manifestation of my entire manifesting career. It brings me to tears when I remember it. I mean, crackhead neighbor is a term of endearment for me now. Oh, do you remember the story? How the most interesting thing was that no one else experienced him the way I did. Like he was still the bad guy in their world. It was only me that got this different version of him. Even his grandmother, who he lived with, she was so scared of him, she eventually filed a protective order. But the version I got while he was there, he was sweet and kind and good. Can you believe it? Ooh. Anyway, with this other boyfriend, when he said, hey, the problem isn't us, it's you. You're just not happy enough to be in a happy relationship. I was like, okay, I'm going to get happy if you're prepared for the consequences, because you might just bounce right out of my world once I arrive there. But he was so sure that I was the issue, not him. He was like, do it. So I did. I got happy first. And this time I did that by tuning to things that were easy to enjoy, that were deeply satisfying and rewarding in my life, like my animals, my work, my home, my friends, my plants. I just put attention on whatever was easier to feel good about. I let it be okay that I didn't know what our future held, because I knew it would sort itself one way or another. I didn't have to make any big decisions. All I had to do was find a way to feel better first, and everything was going to fall in line with those upgraded vibrations. And again, that's a state that's pretty easy for me to find when I get deliberate about it, because I'm no stranger to feeling good. And whenever my mind turned to thoughts of, oh, what do I do about him? What do I do about this? I remembered I don't have to address that. It's going to sort itself out. All I got to do is find ways to feel better. And I upgraded my self-care. I made a point of spending my time in ways that I enjoyed. I was doing a really good job of it. And then my cat got sick. Well, she'd been sick, but she got more sick. She'd been on the decline with kidney disease for a while. She was a senior kitty. She was my most senior kitty. Loved her dearly. But the time had come that her quality of life was such that I needed to call it. And that happened right as I was activating happiness. It seemed like strange timing. So I called the vet that I used last time I needed this done, and it turns out she didn't service my area anymore. She said it's too long a drive. She doesn't come out there. I asked if she knew anyone. She didn't. I did know another vet that would come out to my area, but he was super expensive, and I didn't really love his style. He was just so matter of fact, all business, quick and fast, in and out. Like, he didn't acknowledge the emotions. I just didn't want to deal with him if I didn't have to. I wanted better support than that. And I called my boyfriend to tell him what was up. And he was like, oh, so sorry you got to do that. But he didn't come up to be with me for it. He didn't offer help in any way. I ended up calling an old friend, my best friend actually, who knew this cat. This friend knew this cat almost as well as I did, because I thought he might want to be here for it. And he didn't want to drive up either. It's a long drive. For my boyfriend, it was 40 minutes. For my friend, it was an hour and a half, just one way. But my friend did say that he would find someone to help me out here, so I didn't have to call the vet that neither one of us really liked all that much. And sure enough, within 10 minutes, he texted saying he found the perfect guy to help. He was raving about this guy. He said, you're going to love him. He said he can come the next day. He's super affordable, like the best rates I've ever paid for in-home euthanasia. And my friend told me I was going to be really impressed with this guy. He said, I'm even in love with him a little my own self. I didn't know what that meant, but I was in a state. I mean, I was upset. I was I was in a sorry state that I was going to have to say goodbye to my cat soon, so I didn't ask details. I just said thanks. I didn't even talk to the guy myself. My friend made all the arrangements. He was the middleman for me, which is what I needed right then. So I made the most of my time with my cat that I had left. My boyfriend did not come up, and I didn't ask him to. I just remember wishing that he had, though, because I really just needed a hug. All I needed was a hug. I didn't need someone to be there for the whole thing and hold my hand through it. I just really needed a hug. But I get it. It's not fun. No one wants to be part of it. I don't blame him for not wanting to be there. So the next day, it was time for the appointment. I went out to the porch to wait for the vet to get here. I was sitting in the sun. He pulled up in a truck that he parked right behind my scrub oak, so I couldn't see him until he walked around the front of his truck. And as soon as I laid eyes on him, y'all, it was a wow moment. Oh my gosh, it was like a zing of recognition. You felt that before in your own life, right? It's like when it's someone you don't know, but you know that this isn't just another person in the world. This is your person in the world. Like, this is someone of significance. There's a connection that cannot be explained in any other way because we had never met. I knew him. I knew it so strongly that I said, without even thinking, I didn't say it. I exclaimed it. This is the definition of exclaiming. I exclaimed, "Oh, it's you," as if I knew him. I didn't know him. Look, and I knew that sounded weird, so I shook it off. I remembered what he was here for. I remembered how sad I was. I invited him in. I told him how this was going to be a tricky thing because she was sick, but she's also feral. So I could approach her, but there's no way she was going to let him approach her. So we created a plan, and he was so kind about the whole thing. He was so kind. I'm getting emotional thinking about how nice he was. He was just what I needed. He was so caring. He was so considerate, so patient. He was just amazing. And I remembered what my best friend had said about how he was in love with him, his own self, and I understood why. This guy was incredible. Oh my gosh, I couldn't have had better help for this. He was perfect. And when he left, he was taking her body with him so he could have her cremated, and he said he would return the ashes to me in a few days. So I had walked him out to the driveway so I could say goodbye to my girl one last time. I know it's ridiculous how we get attached to their bodies, but there I was anyway, saying goodbye to her one last time. And I gotta tell you that I had sobbed pretty much through the whole thing. I mean, I was just sad. And he was with me. He was okay with that. He understood. This was a guy who knew how to be present for the hard thing. And after he had her loaded up and was ready to go, he said something to me that no other vet ever has in this situation. He said, "Do you need a hug?" And I was like, oh my gosh, I do. That's exactly what I need. That's exactly what I had wanted earlier from my boyfriend. I just needed a hug. And here was this perfect stranger offering me one, except he was no perfect stranger. Holy guacamole, he was no stranger. I didn't know it at the time, but it turns out he offers all of his clients a hug, men and women, because he knows it's a tough time, no matter who you are, and he'll do whatever he can to and ease your pain a little. So I wasn't unusual, but I didn't know that at the time. I just thought angels had sent him because they knew I needed a hug. And that was really my sign. That this guy I'd never met could be more supportive than my boyfriend, my supposed boyfriend. When the vet brought me her ashes a few days later, actually, he didn't come to my house. I was at an adoption event in town, so I met him there for it. And that's another hard thing. I had kitties getting adopted, and my supposed boyfriend was nowhere to be seen again through any of this. It was like he disappeared. He was off my radar, zagging while I was zigging, I suppose. So I met the vet in town at the adoption event, where he could tell I was having a rough time. I had to say goodbye to my kitty. I'm getting her ashes. That's hard. Got to say goodbye to my kittens, my foster kittens. It was high emotions for me. I mean, I wasn't sure what was harder, losing my lifelong kitty or sending these brand new kittens out into the world where I couldn't guarantee their happy future. Both things were really hard. And again, no boyfriend present, not even a phone call, not even a congrats on the adoptions, not any offers to help. He was incommunicado. While this vet, he's a doctor. He's a busy person. He doesn't need to be hauling carriers through the PetSmart to my car and offering to take me out for something to eat afterward and being totally emotionally supportive. I mean, here I was at my absolute worst, crying on both occasions that I'd seen him. And he was just fabulous about it. He was so supportive, such a good listener. So yeah, I went to lunch with him and we shared about our lives. Including, he mentioned, he had been divorced for a couple years, but he had just ended a relationship that had gone like a year or two. I shared where I was at in my relationship, like I didn't know if I was in one or not. And he shared things that blew my mind. He could not have been more opposite than me. This guy had 5 kids. He was super religious, LDS. He was Republican. He was super conservative. He was the opposite of so many things that I was. Here I am, no kids, not religious, very spiritual. I was woo-woo, a liberal Democrat in Utah. You don't find those very often. And I wasn't just woo-woo. I mean, I was witchy woo-woo. The crystals, astrology, energy workers, full moon intentions, communing with fairies on the property. I mean, 72 black cats. Okay, that's a slight exaggeration, but still just super woo. I'm all animal rights, preserving nature, vegetarian, protesting rodeos and fur stores before I knew that protesting doesn't help. And this guy is the literal rodeo champion, wearing the belt buckle. He supervises the vets who work at the slaughterhouses. He's an avid hunter. I mean, we could not have been more opposite and also so strangely connected. It was the most amazing thing to meet someone that I felt so strongly connected to, but was on complete opposite ends of the spectrum about some pretty key things in life. It was amazing. And my quote-unquote boyfriend, completely AWOL. I don't know what he was doing. He's probably got his own stories to tell, but he really didn't have any time for me. So I figured law of attraction was just doing what it does when someone offers a new vibrational instruction. It was shifting my world to match my new vibration. This is exactly what I thought was going to happen, that when I got to feeling better, he was going to bounce right out. Man, I called it. I did phone him to tell him about my vet, though, just so there weren't going to be any awkward moments in the future where he was surprised to hear what was transpiring in my world. You know, whenever you're taking action to try to prevent something from happening, guess what's likely going to happen? Yeah, we had that awkward moment, but it didn't happen immediately. I told him on the phone that I had a strange connection with the guy that came to euthanize my cat, that I felt like I knew but didn't know. I told him about how as soon as I saw him, I exclaimed, "It's you!" As if I knew him. I told him about how he helped me at the adoption fair and offered me a hug when I needed it. And none of this seemed to register with him or bother him that I had met someone. I mean, hello, I met someone. I capital letters, met someone in the kind of way you cannot ignore. I'm telling this guy the story of it, and he either wasn't listening or he didn't care. He was just unresponsive. I mean, he had no reaction. He just wanted to get off the phone with me. So I don't know if he heard me, but I heard from him. Once he got wind that I went on an official date with the vet, all of a sudden, now he was ready to be the committed boyfriend, present and supportive and cheerful even. But law of attraction had spoken. Happiness had taken me elsewhere, and I was honoring it. I mean, it took me somewhere that didn't make any sense whatsoever, because we could not have been more opposite. How are we supposed to be together? I didn't even mention to you. He lives like 5 hours away. I'm in the north of the state. He's in the south. It was the most impossible thing, but it was also the most amazing, delicious thing for a while, for a long, delicious while. It was just amazing. I learned so much with him. I learned how to see the other side. I learned that maybe I don't know everything I thought I knew, or at least that there was another way to see the things, and that other perspective was just as valid as mine was. It was magical. I also think he might have been sent to kick me loose from my other guy because it took a lot for me to be willing to let him go. I had a strong karmic connection with him. The universe was just delivering these guys to me one after another to get some things straight with me. It was so cool. And I don't consider any of those connections failed. Just because they didn't last a lifetime doesn't mean it was wrong. I believe the exact opposite, that we were all playing the perfect roles for each other at the time, and I can see the gifts in all of it. Even when my St. John's wort had to be sacrificed as a sign. Oh my gosh. So anyway, that's the story that I had promised in the newsletter about how to get happy first instead of changing the circumstances so then you can be happy. Because that when-then syndrome is a pretty common one worth steering clear of as a conscious creator. And you might be thinking, well, couldn't you have just broken up with the guy and then met the new lover just the same way that it happened? I mean, what's the difference here? Get happy first, break up first, doesn't it have the same outcome? The answer to that is no. It would not unfold the same way with the different vibration. I mean, would I have even been huggable if I hadn't been raising my vibration before he got there? Would I have even insisted on a better option for the in-home euthanasia if I was used to not having what I wanted and I just hired the cold, all-business formal guy? Or even if it did go down the same way, even if I did have that zing of spiritual recognition when I saw him, if I hadn't practiced feeling better, I might have just had a repeat experience with that guy. And it was definitely not a repeat experience. And you know what? These are not hypothetical ideas I'm sharing with you. I replaced many a boyfriend in an attempt to find happiness, only to discover that nothing works until I do my work first, my vibrational work first. Man, can you imagine a podcast about all the LOA lessons I picked up from my love life? We would need a whole different podcast for it. It would have like 1,000 episodes. Including, you know how Abraham says that sometimes your inner being steers you into contrast on purpose for the benefit it knows you will get from it? Needing to have my cat euthanized was definite contrast. That led to a very auspicious connection. So I wondered if that contrast was delivered in order to steer me where things were even better. But I have also considered that, yeah, it might have been contrasty, but it was also contrasty to see that cat declining gradually over time, wondering when I was going to have to call it, trying to glean signs from her when it was time. So anyway, what did we learn here today? My main point in sharing all this was to say that it is indeed possible to feel better first before anything else changes. And there are lots of ways to do that. The ones I shared here are just a few possibilities, like pretending it's already so, or act as if you've already got what you want, or turn your attention to what's easier to feel good about in other areas of life, or practice good self-care. There are so many ways. But the good news is, your guidance is always, always, always calling you toward what feels better. So all you ever have to do is start saying yes to that more often until it becomes a habit, and then you're home free. Love how this system works. All right, I hope you got some inspiration from this. Thanks for listening, and happy manifesting.